Welcome to Conversations Different from the Santa Fe New Mexican. This is Inez Russell Gomez, and today we are doing an extra podcast to discuss the big, not so beautiful bill with our member of Congress from the 3rd Congressional District, Teresa Leger Fernández. Welcome, Congresswoman.
Thank you so much, Ines, and thank you to everybody who is listening, because I think it is so important that we all learn what we can about this. I call it the Betrayed for Billionaires bill. It's no longer a bill, it is law.
That's right. That's right. It is law. Although, judging from past actions of the administration, perhaps they won't enforce all of it. Maybe we won't get how many millions of ICE agents or thousands of ICE agents patrolling our streets in their masks.
And I think that's a really important part that you raise, because right now, with this legislation, we are taking money from healthcare. And I'd love to talk about all the ways in which healthcare are impacted, all the ways in which billionaires, millionaires, the largest corporation, kept benefits. But that issue about ICE is ICE now has by far a larger law enforcement budget than every other aspect of law enforcement. So missing and murdered Indigenous women, drug enforcement, arms enforcement, smuggling, the kind of crimes that we know exist that the federal government is supposed to be prosecuting, crimes in Indian country. All of that is not a priority for this administration. Instead, they're putting all of their money into law enforcement for ICE. And it is not about border security. It is about those detention beds where they are locking up citizens, residents, legal residents, people who have no criminal record without any due process. So we should all be outraged about that aspect of the bill as well.
That's right. And I think I read that it could, if they hired enough people and followed through on the money that has been allocated, we could end up with an ICE that is as big as the Israeli army or bigger, like one of the largest armed forces in the world, not just in the United States in terms of the police uh, organizations.
Right. And this is beyond what's important, because Democrats and we had a bipartisan agreement on doing what we need to do to strengthen the border, but they are not working on the border. They are going into communities and they're targeting Democrat cities, which is not right. Right? If there's a problem, go after it, and they're not targeting criminals. So that is a major problem that Americans don't like. By the way, this is Trump's signature thing. But it is unpopular, not as unpopular as the rest of the bill, but does not draw a majority support of the American people either, because they see it is not, America is not a place where masked people, armed individuals can come in and scoop you up without asking. We have way too many citizens. But even the immigrants, we need to remember that they deserve due process. America is about due process.
No, that's right. That's right. It's a really interesting time in that you don't want to become a crazed fanatic who thinks that they're building detention camps to move everybody over there. But you also start wondering who is going to be in the detention camps if there's not enough criminal immigrants, which there aren't, and there's not even as many immigrants as they said there were. So who is going to take the beds and, the alligator Alcatraz kind of thing? So it's a very strange time, and I wonder, as a member of Congress and the minority party, how do you fight it, and what do you suggest we do to make sure that we keep due process and the rule of law?
So I think it's really important to that we do bring the lawsuits that people who we've had some of the first suits starting to be filed for civil rights violations, because you are not allowed to pick people up without due process. So we're going to see those when we can. Congress, the first, we're Article 1. We're the first when they wrote up the Constitution. The Congress was the Article 1. We can't really sue Article 2, which is the president, unless it gets to a certain stage. But we are joining those kind of lawsuits. But we think that it's important that Americans know what is in the bill and what is happening, and that they share their opinions. They share them with the New Mexican. You have such a strong letter writing
too.
I read them all the time. It's like I love getting my newspaper. I have the e version.
Edition. Yep.
Home. If I'm home, I open it up and I climb on the plane with my opinion section on Mondays and
Yep.
open it up and read them all and say, "Ooh, this I need to know why." But write your
Yep.
letters to the editor. Post. Social media is a new way of saying things. I talk about exercising your First Amendment rights, right? Get up and pray in the morning because we all need a little more blessings and pray. Make sure you engage in freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and freedom of asking redress. So just practice your
Right.
First Amendment rights, live the Constitution, and that's what everybody can do. It's not just your congressperson. The power does lie in the people.
That's right. And one of the things when I was talking to Heather Cox Richardson a month or so ago, one of the things she said that struck me is that our government has its legitimacy because it is, founded, the people give it its legitimacy. And if the people are in the streets in the tens of thousands and the millions, then all of a sudden you realize that what they're doing, they may have been elected, but they're no longer legitimate. And I think that's why these large gatherings are so important.
Exactly. And I've been so happy if I've been in town, I attend the gatherings, I speak. I think it's important. When we decisions, if I'm in Congress, I'm walking over protesting at the Supreme Court, because it is important. And there is a sense of belonging to each other. I think that we belong to and with each other in this common purpose of realizing the American dream and realizing the promise that is America. And we only realize that promise that is America of having the good life, of a good job, a good education, good healthcare, good retirement, a home of your own, when we realize that we are together in this project of America. And being together in those protests gives us that sense of belonging, and I think it's important for our own kind of American psyche of who we are, and that's how we've always done it. Let's face it, the revolution was us getting together, people exercising what would eventually become the First Amendment. The Civil Rights Movement was that. Women's suffragette, when we regained our right to vote because women were in the streets, and women were willing to go to jail, and women were willing to take on the protest and write those letters and organize and not agonize. So every step ahead that we've done in history has been when the people have organized with each other and come together. And that's, I think, a moment that we're in now as well.
Yeah, and one hopes that if you do it, you can do it ahead of a very large police force that does things like go into MacArthur Park in Los Angeles, just to show that they can. The idea is that we can go anywhere, we can do whatever we want, which is really not how American law enforcement has ever operated.
Right, masked, and those horses when there were just a few kids playing, right? It
Yeah,
really is. It's intended to have us be fearful.
yeah,
And I think we need to realize we are not afraid. But let me tell you who is afraid. Who is afraid are those Republicans who voted for this bill.
right.
They're afraid to hold town halls. They're afraid to go home. And you hear them saying, like the way Murkowski said, "Oh, you better fix this in the House." It's like, wait a minute, you could have voted against it in the Senate and you didn't. Hawley is now saying, "Oh, well, we're not going to do those awful things." So we have seen that they are afraid to face the voters. And I loved Hakeem Jeffries' 8 hour plus, almost 9 hour speech, where he pointed out that what they are carrying out is Project 2025.
That's right.
They want,
Exactly as promised and written.
right,
Yeah.
they want to eliminate the role of government in making sure that everybody has access to healthcare. They want to eliminate the role of education, the Department of Education, to make sure that everyone has access to the education they need in order to realize their potential.
Yeah.
They want to eliminate the ability of government to make sure that children don't go hungry. And that is also not American. It is also immoral. I am so proud of Archbishop Rester, because he led the letter. It
Yes.
was a nationwide letter, and Archbishop Rester was the leader of it, that talked about how a country that does not feed its hungry and clothe and take care of those who are most in need is not a moral country. And it was a very powerful letter. I used it in the Rules Committee. In my committee, I introduced it. I read from it. And so I'm very thankful that that kind of moral clarity comes from New Mexico.
Yeah, that's so important because it's so easy in the popular understanding of Catholicism and in the right-wing Catholic Church to talk about social issues as an aside and focus mainly on the, abortion or, gay marriage or whatever. And Archbishop Wester is not in favor of abortion, obviously, but he's very clear about the need to take care of those who are least among us, who are poor, who are suffering. And he's so big on nuclear nonproliferation and getting rid of nuclear weapons as well. And I think that gives you a bigger picture of, the actual Catholic teachings.
Right, because they are about valuing life. That letter
Yes.
talked about that. They are about valuing life. And you're going to value life. You must also value the life of the mother when she is pregnant, that she can access health care. Because
Yes.
they're cutting, when they cut Planned Parenthood, when they say you cannot use Medicaid to access Planned Parenthood, that is going to shut down Planned Parenthood clinics in New Mexico and across the country. They think they're going to lose 200. Well, many of those Planned Parenthood sites, they're the only place where you can get cancer screenings. They're the only place you can get prenatal care. So if you
Yep.
want women to have babies, they need prenatal care, right? And so you need to take care of the mother, make sure her child's not hungry. When you cut SNAP, but the way they did, the nutrition programs take food out of hungry children. When you eliminate the ability to get health care, the number of rural hospitals that were closed in New Mexico, and not just in New Mexico, across the country. And it's not Democrats who are saying this, it's the hospitals themselves.
That's right. It's not a political issue. It's a matter of dollars and cents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
a hospital cannot simply say, "Oh, we're going to continue to see people and see patients and not get paid for it."
No,
And
they can't.
Medicaid and Medicare. So let's talk about the four elements that were attacked in this law. This big,
Okay.
in the medical, we talk a lot about Medicaid, right? Almost $1 trillion hit to Medicaid. But the other piece is Medicare. Republicans voted for a bill that will cut Medicare.
That's the one for old people like
what
me.
yeah, seniors have been paying into. You have been paying that Medicare tax for your entire working life, and you expect to get it. Almost a $500 billion cut to Medicare. Think about that. They voted for it. They voted for a $500 billion cut to Medicare. Then we talked about how they're attacking the ability to get reproductive health care, and not an abortion, but literally prenatal care, cancer screening, contraceptive care. And then of course, the big thing of a lot of reason why so many people are going to lose their health insurance coverage is the attack on the Affordable Care Act, because and that's going to happen at the end of this year. A lot of the cuts are going to be they're different timelines, because
they pushed him to after the election. They think we won't notice.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Voters aren't stupid. We're going to make sure they understand that that you might not get the cut till December after the election, but the cut's coming, and it's where their priorities lie.
Right.
So that Affordable Care Act, that's going to hurt a lot of New Mexicans. Medicaid, Medicare, Affordable Care Act, each of those are important pillars for our healthcare system in New Mexico.
Yeah. You almost have to give it to them in terms of never giving up on killing something they don't like. It's one of the things that I think if you're a progressive person or a liberal person, you think the Civil Rights Act, everyone agrees, people are equal, et cetera. Well, no, everyone didn't really agree. Abortion was not codified, but it was preserved in Roe v. Wade. Well, guess what? That's over now. And it's the same with the Affordable Care Act. John McCain saved it, but they figured out other ways to undermine it. So it's going to be less available for people.
Right. And this bill, if you happen to make more than $600,000 a year, you were sitting pretty. Because this bill,
man. Yay.
But if you were like middle class and below, this bill is bad for you. And then it's also bad, like these flash floods and these weather conditions that are destructive and that are taking lives. We're gonna lose about 52,000 people because of this bill. This policy, they're gonna die, right? But think about all of the loss of life and the loss of income and assets and disruption that's coming from the climate crisis.
Right.
They deny it. And
Yeah.
and they undid the when we had, like, let's face it, Republicans do their reconciliation, we did our reconciliation. That shows the priorities. Theirs were cut taxes for the rich, give away subsidies to fossil fuel industries, even though they're making more profits than they know what to do with, and steal people's health care. What we did was say the climate crisis is real, but not only that, but clean energy is a job creator. You can create lots of jobs. It's the economy of the future. It's where innovation is. You clean the air. It's one of those win-win-wins for everybody. They eliminated in this bill all those Biden provisions that we
Right.
passed. Those were our priorities. Was let's create jobs. Let's make sure we can compete with China. They gave away to China all of the innovation and new energy technologies. So
Wow.
they want to be like the horse and carriage. It's like, no, we
Right.
don't want the combustion engine. We want the horse and carriage. And that's what they just voted for. They just said, they want to look backwards, and they are going backwards.
Yeah, well, they said they're making America great again,
It's
so I
been
guess we're going back. We'll get horses next. We'll be back in a moment with more Conversations Different.
We make renewable doable. We're positive energy solar for a cleaner, brighter future for all. Positive energy's the right call. Feel good about your energy bill. Help save the planet too. Your trusted solar company, working hard for you. Generate positive energy. Positive energy solar.
We are back with Conversations Different, talking to Congresswoman Teresa Leger Fernández about the new legislation that had to be passed by the 4th of July and was, even though it was very close. J.D. Vance broke the tie in the Senate. And how many votes? 2 or 3 in the House is all it took.
It was
Yeah.
a very narrow margin. There were 2 Republicans who stood on their principles and voted against it.
Right.
One, Tom Massey, who does not believe in deficit spending, and because this will add $4 trillion, maybe $5 trillion with the interest. This is not about fiscal responsibility. It's the opposite. It's irresponsible. Now, I need to remind everybody, because Republicans always say, oh, we got to get our debt under. That's why we're doing this. That's why we have to cut programs. That is absolutely false. It's true that we have to do that, but it's false for them to raise it, because every Republican president raises our debt, and every Democrat comes in and has to bring it down. So I have this chart that you guys should watch me on the Rules Committee. We have a lot of fun fighting these issues right before they go to the floor of the House. They come to our committee, we argue them out. That just shows it's a chart that goes up and down. Republican takes it up, Democrats bring it down a little, Republicans take it up again, Democrats bring it down some, and then Biden brought the debt down.
And that was even with all the stimulus spending, because we were still in pandemic, et cetera. And Bill Clinton had a surplus.
Mhm.
And President Obama brought the deficit down as well. So it's interesting. The thing about these tax cuts is once you give people something, they don't want to give it away. And these powerful billionaires and other really rich people have so much control in the country now. It's almost as if they've, added to the deficit forever. And how do we get back on good fiscal standing without hurting social programs and the things that we need?
Well, you could do that. It's very easy. You just have to tax the rich in a way that is fair. For
Yeah.
example, they like to say they sent out, oh, we're no taxes on tips and no tax on Social Security. 2 lies that they are saying. Because one, there continue to be tax on Social Security. It's built into the way the Social Security works. There is a $6,000 deduction that expires. It's temporary. There are, for certain tipped employees, and only a very small portion of tipped employees, they will get a tax deduction for their tips. But once again, it's temporary. So the big tax cuts go to the billionaires, and they are permanent. They are getting diamonds that last forever, and tipped workers are getting a few crumbs that only apply to a few of them. Doesn't apply to every tipped worker. And so it's, they just like to mischaracterize, and it shows you they wanted a talking point. So they gave a temporary, small bite to tipped workers, and $6,000 deduction for everybody who's over 65.
Right.
So, whether you needed it or not, you're getting that. And billionaires and big corporations are, permanent. Now, remember, we can fix this.
Right.
We can fix this. What we need is Democrats to win the House, the Senate, and the presidency again. And we will be working on that, because they have their Project 2025, but our Project 2026 is Election 2026. We intend to do the hard work to make sure we flip the House, so we can't see,
Right.
at that point in time, we'll be able to hold the administration accountable, because the other thing that we are seeing is corruption, right? The corruption in this administration is, never have we seen this level of corruption before. And so, the Trump family has doubled their wealth since he got elected. They're engaged in, you want your trade deal to go through? Well, make sure that
Approve my golf course.
Exactly. Give me $1 million and give my company $1 million, and I'll give you a pardon. It's just, it's really bad.
I like that Prime Minister Netanyahu wants more weapons for Israel, so he nominated the president for the Nobel Peace Prize. So it's not always, necessarily give us money. It's also, praise me, and who knows what will happen at that point. It's a great way of doing business.
Right. It is.
God.
So
How do you? This is kind of not a mean question, but a little bit. You had 3 Democrats who ran for re-election last time who had been diagnosed with cancer and were quite old, and then they got elected, and they unfortunately passed away. Is somebody in the Democratic Party strong enough to go to candidates like that and say, "Don't run, you can't do this, we're too close"? Because that might have made the difference with the big, beautiful bill, It's like, how do you, tell people, we love you, you've done a great job, but we need to concentrate on everybody's future, not just your future? And who's going to do that for Democrats?
So I need to acknowledge that we also had Jamie Raskin as an example of somebody who suffered with a cancer diagnosis and came to us and said, "I'm recovered, I can do this." And he's doing such an amazing job. So it is a very delicate thing in terms of being able to honor and respect and let them do that. What I'm focused on is making sure we identify really great candidates to run against those Republicans who are in those districts. There's a lot of them who we called it I had certain acronyms, the congressmen who are caving again, right? There were all of those who were caving again all the time, and who said, "Oh, this is bad, but we don't want, Medicaid is bad and we can't cut Medicaid." And then they would write letters, they tweet no and then vote yes, right? So
Lee and Murkowski were top of that list.
well, and yeah, exactly. And in the House, there were 13 members who signed a letter saying don't cut Medicaid, or another group signed letters saying we can't vote for this bill if you cut the clean energy projects because they're in our district. And then they voted yes, which means that they identified the problems. They identified that it was important for the constituents and still voted for it. David Valadao was on almost every single one of those letters. 507,000 people in his approximately 700,000 person district on Medicaid, and he voted for this bill. we're going to make sure that David Valadeo's constituents know what he did and know what it means. They're going to feel it, but like you said, they might not feel all of it right away. So we're going to make sure they know that he put some of this off thinking you weren't paying attention. He did not prioritize you. He gave in, he caved to Trump. He caved to MAGA. So that's our job my job is to really focus on how do we do the Project 2026, the election 2026. But in the meantime, I do work a lot on trying to get some wins. We were able to take out some bad provisions, the public lands provision, that was a lot of work across the country. The outrage across the country is what forced him to take it out. We had killed it in the House because of that. Gabe Vasquez, I want to give a shout out to him. He co-founded the Public Lands Caucus. He does a great job on these issues. But it was once again the people right across the country. We were able to get the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act expanded and approved. So we're going to be my office will be going around the state, making sure that people can get signed up as soon as we have enough information, because it's a very short window. I want to make sure all of our Nuevo Mexicanos who suffered get signed up for that. There were a couple of other bad provisions that people rising up we were able to kill. So that's the other thing we do work on is how can we make things less bad, right?
Right.
And get enough, I had gotten a couple of Republicans who said they'd work with me to protect Head Start.
Nice.
Now we're going, because, as a Head Start baby, early education, and we are fighting to save that. Where we're going now is in the budget, and
we have to save the funding for the Institute of American Indian Arts and the other tribal colleges.
Yes.
I mean, that's huge for us.
It's huge, and I can tell everybody, if you're listening, I know we all love the IAIA. We recognize that these are not, they're calling them DEI, right? And somehow, I don't know how they think discrimination, corruption, and injustice, DCI, is better than DEI. DEI is about equity. It's about fairness, right? But they've lumped the tribal colleges. The tribal colleges are about treaty rights. They're about federal obligations. Yep. It's not diversity. We entered into treaties with the Native Americans and said the federal government said we'll provide healthcare and education. Right. So I'm working really hard. I've been called a radical optimist before, but I am optimistic that we will restore funding for these colleges. But once again, everybody needs to help me out. If you know a Republican senator or a Republican representatives, reach out to them. Reach out to my office. Share your story about how these colleges made a difference in your life, because stories power the world. You know that, right? Yep. The stories you tell in the newspaper power people's opinion. And so please share with me your stories. Call in and let us know. Reach out to my website. We have a whole little section there on fernandez.house.gov where you can share your stories. Follow me on Twitter. The other thing is I'm the chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus, and so as chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus, the DWC also is gathering stories of how women are being impacted by all of these, because stories are the most powerful things. It's what makes us Homo sapiens.
Yeah, no, if they hadn't have sent Mr. Abrego Garcia to El Salvador, they might still be sending tons of people overseas. So it makes a huge difference. And on that note, we'll take a quick break and be back in a moment.
This is Patrick Dorsey, publisher of the Santa Fe New Mexican. Looking to reach a wider audience and grow your business? For 175 years, the Santa Fe New Mexican has been the trusted voice of Santa Fe, with unmatched local reach in print and online. In addition to our long-standing, independent, family-owned newspaper, we have a full-fledged marketing team with the expertise to help you succeed in the 21st century. From traditional print to precision-targeted digital advertising, we have the tools to connect you with your ideal customers. Partner with us and see the results for yourself. Advertise with the Santa Fe New Mexican and unlock your business's full potential. Visit us at santafenewmexican.com/advertising or call us at 505-995-3852. Thank you.
We're back with Conversations Different and Congresswoman Teresa Leger Fernández. One of the things about this bill is it was so thick and so big and passed so quickly. I mean, they were writing it right before they voted. There's so many things that people don't even know what's in it. And I think that's dangerous, to those guys for reelection probably, and also for citizens who have to put up with the bad law they passed. But you pointed out when you were trying to get one of your Republican colleagues to read part of what he passed. Tell us that story, because that was pretty funny.
So, we noticed that in the bill, you could get a tax deduction for tanning beds. Tanning, right? You could get a tax deduction for tanning beds. It was so ridiculous because we know that their bill is going to shut down hospital beds. So it was such an illustration of where their priorities lie. Like they're going to give a tax cut to tanning beds while they're shutting down hospital beds, right? Who likes to get a tan? Right? We have a certain leader in this country who likes that orange hue. And so we thought this is ridiculous, but it highlighted, because sometimes it's also a story why it highlighted. So I thought, I'm a former lawyer. And so it's like, we often hand documents, will you read to me? And I thought, well, I'm going to just have him read this because it's so ridiculous, because you read it and it's there. And so I handed it to him and he refused to read it. He wouldn't read it out loud because he knew how ridiculous it was. So, and I reacted. By this time, you all have to know that we had been, by that time, I think I had been awake maybe 20 hours or so, because we had,
Nighter.
This was an all-nighter. This was probably at 5 o'clock in the morning or something. And we'd been going nonstop. So at about 5 o'clock in the morning, when he did that, I said, oh my God, he refuses to read it. So I had his colleague read it. But he was ashamed because he knows how bad it is, right? That he refused to read it. And then it went viral. I knew it was going to be something that struck a chord, but his refusal to read it, which meant they are ashamed of what they've put in this bill. And it went so viral. I mean, I think there were like 4 million, 5 million hits on this, that it forced them to take it out. Another example of when there was enough outrage, they packed back. So they did take that out. Good. But, I then pointed out, I had him on, when the bill came back over, and he had been bragging about my raider really loved the fact that we're going to get this bill passed. They want me to pass this bill because of the no tax on tips. And I said, well, tell me, did you tell your raider that his no tax on tips is only going to last 4 years? Well, no. But, and then it's, well, did you tell your raider that, 40% of waiters, waitresses, service people in the service industry utilize Medicaid or get the subsidies under the Affordable Care Act? Did you explain to them that they were going to lose those? And so, whatever small tax benefit, they were going to end up paying more. It's going to go from like $800 to $2,000. Now, your tax deduction isn't going to be that big. Did you explain that to that waiter? And so we went through, and that man when it comes time for me to ask him a question, he just glowers at me. Oh, he gives me these looks.
He doesn't want to ask. And the thing about the Medicaid cuts and the Affordable Care subsidies is that it doesn't just affect the people that get those subsidies. It affects everybody else, because if the hospital in Las Vegas closes, they're going to be at St. Vincent's and it's going to be more crowded, and there's going to be fewer doctors because they're going to have patients that can't pay and they'll go other places. And it affects all of our care. And it seems like there's an inability to look at how one part affects the system.
You are absolutely right. I think somebody gave a description of it. It's like a web, right? A spider's web, that when you affect one part of the system, it reverberates through the entire web, right? That's how they know where to catch it. It reverberates everywhere. Another way, we did a little video about it being like a Jenga, puzzle. You And the blocks are relying on each other. You can start pulling out some, but there are so many blocks that they have pulled out that the system's going to collapse. And when somebody shows up at the hospital, now under federal law, you cannot turn them away when they show up at your emergency room. So you have to treat them, and those are going to be called what they call self-pay / no pay, because nobody has the money to pay that hospital bill. And if you don't have enough money to afford insurance, the emergency room becomes your primary care. And
Not efficient or cost effective.
and it's also cruel. I had somebody who shared with me. She said, my brother lost his job. He was employed at the city, and he had good health insurance, and he needed, he had asthma, severe asthma, and so he needed an inhaler. And whenever he ran out of an inhaler, he would go to the emergency room because they would give him one.
Oh,
It saved his life. She goes, but the last time he couldn't get there on time, he died gasping for breath.
yeah.
Gasping for breath. And it's that kind of story where for a $400 inhaler, you lost a member of your community who might have been working part-time but couldn't afford the health insurance. And for $400, he died gasping for breath. And that's the kind of story of what's going to happen. And that's why they say we think there'll be 52,000 deaths. And these are deaths it's a policy decision. It is a vote that those Republican congressmen, women, and senators did.
Yeah. And you have things like Joni Ernst saying, well, people die in a cemetery. It was the strangest thing. And you kind of wonder, you can argue that you want government less involved in medicine. You want different policy changes because that's your perspective. But you do it when you're making those changes, you do it in a way that bolsters the private system so that they can care for people and not just cut people off where they have no ability to go elsewhere. That's the thing that's going to be so hard, is the people who can't get care at all.
That comment made about when a community loses their hospital, the community dies.
Yes.
Because people don't want to live where they can't get health care, because they don't want to die when they have a heart attack or have a pregnancy complication or have a stroke when minutes.
No, when we were little, there was 2 hospitals in Las Vegas, and lots of doctors who even would come to your door. So in my lifetime, healthcare has improved, even though it's more scientific and, more miraculous in a lot of ways. But the actual one-on-one patient care has really gotten worse. And this change isn't going to help, I don't think.
Right. And there are problems we need to address. And so let's address those problems, but don't do it where you're just their target was, we want $1 trillion worth of cuts so that we can give $1 trillion worth of
tax cuts.
It was like, just give us a number. It wasn't, let's go and see where we can make improvements. One of the things that they got rid of in this bill was there was a rule that there was a regulation that provided, by law, we said simplify the Medicaid application process, make it more simple. They eliminated that in this bill because the purpose of all of the paperwork is to kick people off of health insurance. That's exactly what happened in Arkansas when they instituted these work requirements. There wasn't more employment, but people mess up because it's already like a 13-page application right now.
Yes.
They want to make it even more complicated so people make mistakes and get kicked off.
Right. The purpose is to deny aid, not to give it if possible. And one of the things with Medicaid that people have to talk about more, there's been some attention, but is that's what pays for a lot of people's long-term care when they're old. So we're going to lose nursing homes and senior citizens care as well. And I think most people don't have money to pay for a room in a nursing home. So what happens to those patients and what happens to the workers at those places?
So 75% of the people in nursing homes are receiving Medicaid.
Yep.
And some people who they combine their Medicare with their Medicaid. And so what will happen is they'll get kicked out. Those nursing homes will close. They'll only be available to wealthy families. And people, what will happen is they'll have to go home. And I went and I met with people in nursing homes when we were talking about these bills. And I need to tell you, they were wonderful. They were wonderful. And there were two women I met with, and what they kept saying is, I don't want to be a burden on my family.
Yeah.
But they'll get kicked out. And so they'll have to go back home, which means somebody will have to leave their work to be able to care for them.
Yeah.
Now, who is that most often? It's most often a woman.
Yeah. It's the daughter or the wife or whatever. Yep.
Wives will end up leaving her job or being burdened with both having a job because they can't afford the cut in income, and having caregiving responsibilities, childcare responsibilities, work responsibilities. It just basically wears out the middle class, the working class. And that's what the wealthy don't understand. Like when the Republicans cut things, they don't understand how hard we work, how hard my community works, how hard the people I love and the people I come from, we work hard. So how dare you? How dare you insult us and call us lazy? We work hard. We get our hands dirty. We struggle. We try to make it. And that's what Democrats are about trying to do, is say we need to help all of these people who work hard get the good life. Right? That's the arc of what government should do, is how do we help them get good jobs, good education, good healthcare, good retirement, respect, and live in a place that is healthy and is not subject to this crazy climate crisis we're on. There is work we can do. We can address it. We can't solve it completely, but boy, we can really make a difference. And that's what Democrats were trying to do when we had our chance. And that's what we will do. I said there was a plumbing problem. We do need to address some of the problems in government, but there was a plumbing problem. What Republicans came in and did was burn down the house. Democrats are going to come back and we're going to rebuild that house. We're not putting the same old appliances back in because they needed fixing and they needed work, but we're going to put those appliances back in. We're going to rebuild it in a way that addresses these concerns, addresses the affordability crisis. We cannot, my community, my family, my nephews and nieces can't afford to live in the society we now have. The rich are too rich. The corporations are too powerful. The middlemen are getting everything, credit card companies, health insurance, go down and name it. Amazon is so wealthy. What do they produce? Nothing, right?
Lots of stuff.
They move stuff from one place to another. We need the people who are producing, who are doing the hard work in America's economy to get the benefit from America's economy. And so that means pushing some of that wealth down, not pushing it up like they did in this bill, pushing it back down to the people who are making things, who are working, who are getting their hands dirty, who are struggling and getting ahead. Those are the people that I want to focus on, not the wealthiest of Americans.
And that is a great place to wrap it up. You have been so generous with your time, and we appreciate it so much. I look forward to seeing what you do when you're back in Congress and watching for you to go viral again. And on that note, this has been another Conversations Different. We'll be back next week. Thank you for listening to Conversations Different, hosted by me, Inez Russell Gomez, editorial page editor for the Santa Fe New Mexican. Our weekly episodes would not be possible without your support. We hope you enjoy them and keep listening. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Consider signing up for our newsletter so you never miss an episode, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the Santa Fe New Mexican. Our podcast is available by visiting our website, santafenewmexican.com/podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Conversations Different with Inez Russell Gomez is produced by Matt Dalside and Ernesto Cisneros, published by the Santa Fe New Mexican, a local and independent newspaper owned by Robin Martin.